The bedroom door stood open. Adana didn't remember leaving it that way. She stood at the threshold of her own master suite, the room she designed herself, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Lagos skyline, and watched a stranger direct two men to pack her clothes into cardboard boxes. The woman was younger, prettier perhaps in that temporary way pregnancy makes some women glow. Her belly swelled beneath a designer dress Adana recognized. One she'd admired in a boutique 3 months ago, but decided was too expensive. "Be careful with that jewelry box," the woman snapped at one of the movers. "Those are valuable pieces. Adana's jewelry. Her grandmother's gold. Her father's final gift before the accident." The woman turned, finally noticing her. No shame crossed her face. Instead, her lips curled into something between a smile and a sneer. "Oh, you're still here." She placed one hand on her pregnant belly, the gesture deliberate, territorial. "Kingsley said you'd be gone by now. I'm Chioma, by the way. Though I suppose you already know who I am." Adana said nothing. Her throat had closed around words that felt too small for this moment. "Kingsley wants you out by evening," Chioma continued, walking through Adana's bedroom like she owned it. She ran her fingers along the mahogany dresser, examined the wedding photos still standing on the nightstand. "He said you've overstayed your welcome. This is my home now, mine and our babies. We need space to build our family." The movers avoided Adana's eyes. One of them mumbled an apology she didn't acknowledge. "The guest quarters are empty," Chioma said, her voice syrupy with false sympathy. "You can stay there temporarily while you figure out your next steps. Kingsley said he'd give you a month. I think that's generous considering." "Considering what?" Adana wanted to ask. "Considering you're sleeping with my husband? Considering you're carrying his child while I stand in the home I built with my own inheritance?" But she said none of this. She simply stood there, watching this stranger dismantle her life, and smiled. It was a smile that made Chioma's confidence falter. Just for a moment. "Well," Chioma demanded, her voice rising slightly, "aren't you going to say something?" Adana's smile widened. "Not yet," she said quietly. "But soon." And she turned and walked away, leaving Chioma standing in a bedroom that didn't belong to her, in a house whose ownership she'd never thought to question. "Before we continue, let me ask you something quietly. Where are you listening from right now? And what time is it in your part of the world? Some of us are hearing this story under the hot afternoon sun. Some in the calm of the night, when thoughts are heavy and hearts are open. Different places, one story, one lesson. If stories like this speak to your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your like helps this story reach another soul. Your comment tells me you understand the lesson. And when you share, you may be saving someone from the same mistake. Now let us continue. 7 years earlier, Adana had stood on this same plot of land with her architect's drawings rolled under her arm and tears streaming down her face. Her father had been dead 3 months. The inheritance he'd left her, substantial, surprising, sat in her account like a weight. Everyone had opinions about what she should do with it. Invest conservatively, start a business, save it for her future children. Adana had looked at the empty land in Ikoyi and seen something else. Freedom. Independence. A foundation she could build her life upon, literally. She'd designed the house herself. Every window, every angle, every detail reflected her vision. Modern lines softened by traditional touches. Carved wooden doors from her father's village. Spaces that breathed with light and air. She'd poured her grief and her hope into those blueprints. The house took 18 months to build. She registered it in her name alone, signed all the documents, paid every contractor. It was hers in a way nothing else had ever been. She'd met Kingsley during the construction. He was charming, successful, everything her mother had prayed for. A businessman with contracts across West Africa, always impeccably dressed, always knowing the right thing to say. When he proposed after 6 months of courtship, standing in the unfinished living room of her new home, she'd said yes without hesitation. "This will be our palace," he'd said, spinning her around the empty space. "We'll fill it with children, with life, with love." She'd never told him the house was solely hers. It seemed unnecessary, even petty. They were getting married, what was hers would be theirs. The specifics of ownership felt like outdated formalities in the face of their love. Besides, Kingsley's business was thriving. He talked about expansion, about deals in Ghana and Senegal, about the empire he was building. The house was simply where they lived. Why make it complicated? The problem started slowly, subtly. First came his mother's visits. Mama Judith would arrive unannounced, her eyes sweeping critically over Adanna's modern furniture, her open-plan kitchen, her art collection. "This house is too cold," Mama Judith declared during one visit. "No warmth. No proper sitting room for receiving elders. Everything is too Western. I designed it for comfort and light," Adana explained patiently. "Kingsley loves it." "Kingsley is too soft on you." Mama Judith's gaze hardened. 7 years of marriage, Adana. 7 years and still no child. What are you waiting for? Do you think houses matter more than legacy? The question hung in the air like poison. After his mother left, Kingsley was different. Quieter. He'd look at Adana across their beautiful dining table and sigh, like she was a problem he was too tired to solve. "Maybe we should see a specialist," he said one evening. "We've seen 3 specialists," Adana reminded him. They all said the same thing. "There's no medical reason we can't conceive. It just takes time sometimes." 7 years is a long time. "Are you saying this is my fault?" "I'm saying my mother isn't wrong to be concerned." The conversation ended there, but something had shifted. Kingsley started working late more often. Business trips extended. When Adana called, he sounded distracted, impatient. She noticed small things. Lipstick on his collar that wasn't her shade. Receipts for restaurants she'd never been to. A new cologne that made her eyes water. When she tried to talk to him, he deflected. "You're paranoid," he said. "I'm building a business. That requires sacrifice. Maybe if you spent less time obsessing over my schedule, and more time focusing on what matters." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Adana threw herself into her work. New projects, new clients, anything to fill the silence growing between them. Her architecture firm was thriving. She just won a contract for a government building that would triple her annual income. But success at work felt hollow when she returned each evening to a house that no longer felt like home. Their 7th anniversary approached. Adana decided to fight for her marriage one more time. She planned an elaborate dinner. His favorite foods, candles, the good wine they'd been saving. She wore the dress he'd complimented on their wedding day, now taken in slightly because stress had stolen her appetite. She waited. 7 o'clock became 8. 8 became 9. At 10 she texted. "Where are you?" No response. At 11 she called. Straight to voicemail. At midnight she cleared the table, threw away the cold food, and went to bed. Kingsley came home at 3 in the morning. She heard him stumbling through the house trying to be quiet. The guest room door closed. In the morning she found his jacket thrown over a chair. She wasn't looking for evidence. She was simply tired of his carelessness, always having to clean up after him. But when she picked up the jacket, something fell from the pocket. A hotel key card. The 4 Seasons. And written on the back in looping feminine handwriting. "Room 1407. I'll be waiting. See." Adana stood in her beautiful kitchen, in the house she'd built with her own hands and her father's blessing, holding evidence of her husband's betrayal, and felt something inside her go very cold and very still. She placed the key card on the counter. She made coffee. And she began to plan. Confrontation came 3 days later. Adana had waited deliberately, watching Kingsley come and go. His lies growing more elaborate. A conference in Abuja. A client emergency in Port Harcourt. Each excuse delivered with practiced ease. She waited until Saturday morning when he had nowhere to run, no meeting to rush to. "I found this," she said simply, sliding the hotel key card across the breakfast table. Kingsley's face went through several expressions in quick succession. Shock, calculation, defiance. He settled on irritation. "You went through my pockets? You left your jacket on my furniture. Who is she?" "Adana." "Who is she?" The calm in her voice seemed to unsettle him more than screaming would have. He sighed like she was being unreasonable. "Her name is Chioma. I met her at a business conference 8 months ago." 8 months. The words landed like stones. "Are you ending it?" Adana asked. "It's not that simple." "Yes, Kingsley. It is exactly that simple." He stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. My mother calls me every week asking about children. My brothers make jokes about my empty house. Do you know what that feels like? To be seen as less of a man because your wife hasn't gotten pregnant? Adana's voice rose despite her intentions. So your solution was to find someone who could? The silence answered her question. She's pregnant, Kingsley said quietly. 3 months. The kitchen tilted. Adana gripped the counter, focusing on breathing. Get out, she whispered. This is my house too. Get out. The scream tore from somewhere deep, somewhere she didn't recognize. Kingsley flinched, actually stepped backward. I'll go stay with a friend for a few days, he said stiffly. When you've calmed down, we can discuss this rationally. Rationally? You got another woman pregnant, and you want to discuss it rationally. You're being hysterical. Leave. Now. Before I do something we'll both regret. He left. But he didn't go to a friend's house. Later, Adana would learn he'd gone straight to Chioma's apartment in Victoria Island, to the woman carrying his child, to the future he'd chosen over his marriage. The following weeks blurred together. Adana went through motions: work, home, sleep. Her assistant noticed her weight loss, her distraction. Her best friend Jennifer insisted she eat, drink water, file for divorce. Why are you protecting him? Jennifer demanded. He cheated. He got her pregnant. Leave him with nothing. But Adana couldn't explain the paralysis that had settled over her. Some part of her kept hoping Kingsley would come back, apologize, choose her. Fight for their marriage the way she'd been fighting for years. Instead, he began coming and going as he pleased, using his key, taking clothes, acting like nothing had changed except now he split his time between 2 homes. He never apologized. Worse, he began bringing Chioma around. First to his mother's house for Sunday lunch. Then to family weddings, introducing her as a close friend. The pretense was paper-thin. Everyone knew, everyone whispered. Mama Judith called Adana one afternoon, her voice dripping with false concern. Adana, my dear. I think you should know, Kingsley brought a woman to church today. She's pregnant. I know, Mama. You know? And you're just accepting this. What would you have me do? A smart woman knows when to share, Mama Judith said carefully. If you had given Kingsley children, this wouldn't be happening. But since you couldn't fulfill your duty, perhaps you should be grateful another woman can. Adana hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Not Mama Judith this time. An unknown number. Hello. Hi, Adana. The voice was young, cheerful, cruel. This is Chioma. I thought it was time we talked woman to woman. Adana's grip tightened on the phone. Kingsley talks about you sometimes, Chioma continued. He feels sorry for you, you know? That you can't have children. It must be so hard, watching me give him what you couldn't. Is there a point to this call? The point is that things are changing. Kingsley wants to do right by his son. Yes, it's a boy, we just found out. He's going to need space. Real space. Not your guest room, but proper rooms for a nursery for our family. Your family. Our family, Chioma corrected. Kingsley, me, and our baby. We were thinking, since the house is so large, you wouldn't mind moving to the guest quarters, would you? Just temporarily, until you figure out your next step. Kingsley wants to be close to his son. Every word was calculated to wound. The guest quarters, Adana repeated slowly. They're quite nice, really. You'll barely notice the change. Something in Adana's chest cracked open, but her voice remained steady. Tell Kingsley to come discuss this with me himself. If he has requests about MY House, he can make them to MY Face. She hung up before Chioma could respond, but Kingsley never came. Instead, 2 weeks later he called while traveling for business. Adana, be reasonable. Chioma is 7 months pregnant now. She needs to be comfortable. The baby needs a proper nursery. You're barely home anyway, always working. What difference does it make which room you sleep in? You want me to give up my bedroom for your mistress. I want you to be mature about an impossible situation. An impossible situation you created. I'm trying to do the right thing here. The right thing would have been keeping your vows. And when will you accept responsibility for your part in this? If you'd gotten pregnant when we started trying, none of this would have happened. The accusation hung between them, poisonous and final. "You're right," Adana said softly. "This is all my fault. I'm so sorry I couldn't carry your child. I'm so sorry I wasn't enough. I'm so sorry I ever married you." She hung up and began making different plans. The day Chioma came to take over arrived exactly as scheduled. Kingsley had left for a business trip to Accra 3 days earlier. Before leaving, he'd had the audacity to brief Adana on what he expected. "Chioma will be moving her essential items into the master bedroom," he'd said, standing in the foyer like a stranger. "She's too pregnant to manage stairs to the guest floor. You understand?" "Of course," Adana had replied with a smile that made him uncomfortable. "I understand perfectly." He'd left, clearly relieved to avoid the actual transition. Adana waited. On Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, a car pulled up to the gate. The security guard, Emmanuel, who'd worked for Adana since the house was built, called up to the main house. "Madam, a Miss Chioma is here with a moving van. She says Oga gave her permission to enter." "Let her in, Emmanuel." "Madam, let her in. I want to see this." Adana positioned herself in the upstairs hallway where she could watch the entrance. She wore one of her elegant work suits, makeup perfect, every hair in place. If this was going to happen, she would face it with dignity. The front door opened. Chioma had a key now, apparently. "Hello," Chioma called out, her voice echoing through the high-ceilinged foyer. "Where is everyone?" 2 movers followed her inside, carrying empty boxes. Chioma waddled toward the stairs, one hand on her pregnant belly, taking in the house with proprietary satisfaction. She'd been here before, clearly, but never as the woman in charge. "You too," she instructed the movers. "Start with the master bedroom upstairs. Pack everything that looks like women's clothes or personal items. We'll sort through what to keep later." The movers hesitated, glancing at each other. "Go on," Chioma snapped. "I don't have all day. This baby is sitting right on my bladder." They began climbing the stairs. Adana stepped into view. Chioma startled, her hand flying to her chest. "Oh, you're here. Kingsley said you'd be at work." "Did he? Well, this is actually perfect. You can show the movers which items you want to take to the guest house. I've picked out new linens for the master bedroom. That cream color you have is too impractical with the baby coming." Adana descended the stairs slowly, each step measured. The movers stopped, clearly sensing tension. "I designed this house," Adana said conversationally, 8 years ago. "Every detail. The height of these ceilings, 4 meters exactly. The width of these stairs, wide enough for 3 people to walk abreast comfortably. The master bedroom has a private balcony overlooking the pool." "Did Kingsley mention that?" "He's told me everything about the house," Chioma said defensively. "We've talked about which rooms will be the nursery, where we'll put the playroom eventually. He wants our son to grow up with space." "Our son?" Adana reached the bottom of the stairs. Interesting choice of words. "Tell me, Chioma, what exactly has Kingsley told you about this house?" "That he built it for his family. That you've been staying here, obviously, but that it's time to make room for his real family now." "His real family? You know what I mean." Chioma's confidence wavered slightly. "The point is, Kingsley owns this house, and he's made his decision about who should live here. You've had 7 years. I'm sorry you couldn't give him children, but that doesn't mean he should be punished forever." Adana walked past her, into the living room. She opened a drawer in the antique cabinet, the one her father had commissioned, the one that held her important documents. "Emmanuel," she called out. The security guard appeared in the doorway, looking nervous. "Yes, madam. Please call Mama Judith. Tell her she needs to come to the house immediately. There's something she needs to see." "Madam." "Now, Emmanuel." He pulled out his phone. Adana turned back to Chioma, who was watching with growing unease. "You said Kingsley owns this house," Adana said softly. "Before we go any further, I think you should see something." She pulled out a leather folder, opened it and removed several documents. "This," she said, holding up the first page, "is the original land purchase agreement, dated January 2016. Do you see the buyer's name?" Chioma squinted at the document. Her face began to pale. "Adana Okafor." Adana read aloud. That's my maiden name. And this, she held up another document, is the building permit, issued to Adana Okafor. And this is the certificate of occupancy, registered to. She paused. Adana Okafor Okonkwo. That's my married name now, but notice, the original purchase was before I ever met Kingsley. He said, Chioma's voice cracked. He said he built this house. He said. He lied. Adana's voice was gentle now, almost pitying. This house was built with my inheritance from my father. Kingsley has never paid a single naira toward this property. Not the land, not the construction, not even the furniture. This house is mine, Chioma. Legally, completely, undeniably mine. The color had drained entirely from Chioma's face. Her hand gripped the back of a chair. But he's been living here. As my husband. Not as the owner. He told me. Tears welled in Chioma's eyes. He said we'd live here. He said he'd transfer it to my name after the baby came. He promised me. He promised you a house that isn't his to give. The front door burst open. Mama Judith swept in, clearly annoyed at being summoned. She took in the scene. Chioma crying, the movers standing frozen with boxes, Adana holding documents. What is this drama? Mama Judith demanded. Chioma called me crying yesterday, saying you were making things difficult. Mama Judith, Adana interrupted calmly. Did Kingsley tell you he owns this house? Of course he owns it. He's the man, the husband. No, Mama. I own this house. Solely. Here are the deeds. She handed the documents to her mother-in-law. Mama Judith's eyes scanned the papers. Her expression shifted from irritation to confusion to something like horror. You bought this before you married? Yes. And you never told Kingsley? I told him it was my father's gift to me. He never asked for specifics. He never asked to see documents. He assumed, as did everyone else, that a house this valuable must belong to the man. It doesn't. Mama Judith looked at Chioma, then at the movers, then back at the documents in her hands. When she looked at Adana again, something had shifted in her gaze. Chioma, Mama Judith said slowly. What are you doing here? Kingsley said. Chioma sobbed. He said we could live here. He said it was ours. It was never his to promise, Mama Judith said, her voice sharp with sudden anger. But the anger wasn't directed at Adana. My son lied to you. He lied to all of us. Adana pulled out her phone, dialed Kingsley's number, put it on speaker. He answered on the third ring, his voice cheerful. Adana, is everything settled? Did Chioma get moved in okay? Kingsley, Adana said calmly, tell your mistress the truth about who owns this house. Silence. Kingsley. Chioma's voice broke. You told me you built this house. You said. I can explain. Tell her, Adana commanded. Tell her who the legal owner is. Tell her who paid for every brick, every fixture, every detail. Tell her the truth, or I'll have her arrested for trespassing in the next 10 minutes. Adana, please. The truth. Now. The house is, technically, in Adana's name. His voice had lost all its confidence. But I'm her husband, so it's essentially. No, Kingsley. It's not essentially anything. It's legally, completely, and solely mine. And you, she looked at Chioma, have exactly 1 hour to remove yourself and your movers from my property before I call the police. Chioma's face crumpled. The stress, the shock, the betrayal, it all hit at once. She gasped, clutching her stomach. The baby, she whispered. Something's wrong. She collapsed. The ambulance arrived within 12 minutes. Adana stood in her doorway watching the paramedics load Chioma onto a stretcher, Mama Judith accompanying her, and felt nothing but a vast, cold emptiness. She hadn't called the ambulance to be cruel. She'd called it because a pregnant woman had collapsed in her home. And regardless of everything else, Adana wasn't a monster. But she also wasn't sorry. The neighbors had gathered, as neighbors do. Mrs. Adeyemi from next door, the Akbra family from across the street, even old Mr. Fashola who never left his compound. They watched the spectacle with undisguised fascination. Adana knew exactly what this looked like: scandal, disgrace, the kind of neighborhood drama that would fuel gossip for months. She didn't care. Emmanuel approached hesitantly. Madam, should I close the gate? Leave it open, Adana said. I want everyone to see exactly what kind of man Kingsley is. She pulled out her phone and called her lawyer. Gloria? It's Adana. I need you to draw up 2 documents immediately. First, a formal notice of trespass against Chioma Nwosu. Second, divorce papers. Yes, today. I'll be in your office in 2 hours. The next call went to a locksmith. I need every lock in my house changed by tomorrow morning. Every door, every gate, every entrance. Can you do it? Excellent. Then she walked back inside her house, and began systematically removing every trace of Kingsley from the premises. His clothes went into garbage bags. His shoes, his watches, his cologne, his papers, everything. She worked methodically, room by room, purging him from her space the way she should have months ago. Her phone rang constantly. Kingsley calling from Accra. She declined every call. Text messages flooded in. Answer your phone. What happened to Chioma? My mother says she's in the hospital. This is your fault. If something happens to my son, I'll never forgive you. Adana blocked his number. Mama Judith called 3 hours later from the hospital. Adana. Is she alive? Yes. The baby too. It was a panic attack, severe stress. The doctors are keeping her overnight for observation. Good. Good. Mama Judith's voice rose. My son's child almost died today. Your son, Adana said coldly, lied to his pregnant mistress about owning a mansion, brought her to my home to humiliate me, and created this entire situation through his deceit. If anyone is responsible for Chioma's stress, it's Kingsley. Silence on the other end. You're right, Mama Judith finally said, her voice small. I'm ashamed to say it, but you're absolutely right. I raised him better than this. Did you, Mama? Because you've been telling him for 7 years that a wife without children is worthless. You created the pressure that led him to this. The accusation landed like a slap. Mama Judith sucked in a sharp breath. I never meant. It doesn't matter what you meant. What matters is what you said, what you did, how you made me feel in my own home. You told him I wasn't enough. You told him to look elsewhere. You encouraged this. I was wrong. Mama Judith's voice broke. I was so wrong, Adana. I'm sorry. I'm so desperately sorry. But apologies couldn't undo 7 years of cruelty. Tell Kingsley, Adana said, that when he returns from Accra, he should find somewhere else to live. My locks will be changed. If he tries to enter my property, I'll have him arrested. Adana, please. I'm done, Mama. I'm done being patient, being understanding, being the bigger person. I'm done sacrificing my dignity for a man who never valued it. She hung up. By evening, the news had spread through their entire social circle. Adana's phone exploded with messages from friends, colleagues, relatives. Some supportive, some curious, some judgmental. Jennifer arrived at her door with wine and takeout. So, Jennifer said, settling onto the couch, you finally did it. I should have done it months ago. But you didn't. Why today? Adana thought about Chioma's sneering face, her entitled voice, her hand on the jewelry box. Because she tried to take my bedroom. Everything else, the affair, the pregnancy, the lies, I could somehow rationalize. But watching her pack up my grandmother's jewelry, hearing her plan my nursery and my home. Something snapped. About damn time something snapped. They drank wine and didn't talk about Kingsley. But the city talked. Social media erupted. Someone had filmed the ambulance, posted it online with wild speculation. By morning, #Lagos Mansion drama was trending. Kingsley's business associates began distancing themselves. In Lagos, reputation was everything, and a man who lies about owning his wife's house, gets his mistress pregnant, then tries to evict the wife? That kind of scandal destroyed careers. His biggest client, a construction firm he'd been courting for years, sent a brief email. Given recent developments, we've decided to pursue other partnerships. Adana knew because Kingsley's secretary called her, crying. Mrs. Okonkwo, please. Mr. Okonkwo's business is collapsing. 3 clients have pulled out. The bank is asking questions about loans he took out using the house as collateral. He did what? He put up the Ikoyi house as collateral for business loans. The bank just discovered it's not in his name. They're calling it fraud. Adana's blood turned to ice. How much did he borrow? 32 million naira. The house was worth far more, but the principal, using property that wasn't his to secure loans, that was criminal. She called Gloria immediately. He committed fraud, Gloria confirmed after reviewing the documents. Used your property without your consent or knowledge. You can press charges. Will I? That's not a legal question, Adana. That's a personal one. Adana thought about the boy who'd charmed her during construction, the man who'd promised her forever, the stranger who'd brought his pregnant mistress to her bedroom. File a police report, she said. Let them decide. Kingsley returned to Lagos 2 days later to find his world completely dismantled. His mother refused to let him stay with her. The disgrace was too much. His brothers turned their backs. He'd embarrassed the family. Chioma, released from the hospital, refused to see him. Her father and brothers made it clear. Kingsley was not welcome near their daughter or grandson. And Adana's house, his home for 7 years, was locked against him. He stood outside the gate one evening drunk, shouting, "Adana! Adana, please! I'm sorry. I'll fix everything. Just let me in." She watched from the upstairs window, her phone recording his meltdown. When he started climbing the gate, she called the police. They arrested him for trespassing, drunk and disorderly conduct. His mugshot appeared online by morning. The fall from grace was complete. 8 months passed. Adana stood on her bedroom balcony, the same balcony Kingsley had promised Chioma, the same space she designed to catch the morning light, and watched the city wake up. Her divorce was finalized. The proceedings had been swift. Kingsley had nothing to fight with, no leverage, no claims. The house remained hers. The business loans he'd fraudulently secured led to criminal charges. He pleaded guilty to avoid jail time but was ordered to pay restitution he couldn't afford. Adana had learned through mutual friends that he was living in a single room in Surulere, working odd jobs, barely surviving. Chioma had her baby, a healthy boy she named Emmanuel after her grandfather. She'd moved back to her family home in Enugu, wanted nothing to do with Lagos or Kingsley. The child support garnished what little Kingsley earned. Mama Judith had come to apologize formally, bringing elders from Kingsley's family. She'd knelt in Adana's living room, something no woman her age did lightly, and begged forgiveness. "I poisoned my son's mind," she'd wept. "I made him believe a good woman wasn't enough. I destroyed his marriage with my bitterness. Please, Adana, forgive me." Adana had helped her up, served her tea and said, "I don't hate you, Mama, but I can't forget what your words cost me." It was the closest thing to forgiveness she could offer. Her architecture firm was thriving. The government project had led to 3 more contracts. She'd hired new staff, expanded her offices. Success felt different now, sharper, more intentional. Not something to share, but something she'd earned alone. Friends tried to set her up on dates. She declined politely. Maybe someday. Not yet. This evening she was hosting a gathering. Colleagues, friends, industry contacts. A celebration of her firm's 5th anniversary, and her latest award, Lagos Architect of the Year. The house gleamed. Every room she designed with such care now served its intended purpose. Beauty, function, belonging. As guests arrived, music and laughter filling the spaces that had been so silent for so long, Adana moved through her home with quiet pride. Around 8 o'clock, Emmanuel appeared at her elbow. "Madam, there's someone at the gate. We're not expecting anyone else. It's Mr. Okonkwo." The party noise faded slightly. Several guests had heard were watching. "Tell him to leave. He's asking to speak to you. Just 5 minutes. He says it's important." Adana considered, then nodded. "Outside. Not inside my house." She walked to the gate, aware that several guests had followed at a discreet distance, protective. Kingsley stood on the other side of the wrought iron, and she barely recognized him. He'd lost weight. His clothes, once impeccable, hung loosely. His face carried lines that hadn't been there 6 months ago. Lines carved by regret and consequence. "Adana," he said softly, "thank you for seeing me. You have 5 minutes. I know I don't deserve even that." He gripped the gate bars like a man drowning. "I came to tell you I'm sorry. Truly deeply sorry. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was arrogant and stupid and cruel. Is that all? No. His voice cracked. I came to tell you that you were right about everything. About me, about what I valued, about what I threw away. I had everything, a brilliant, beautiful wife, a home, respect, a future. And I destroyed it all because I was too proud to appreciate what I had. Adana's expression didn't change. I see Chioma sometimes, he continued, when I make child support payments. She won't let me near Emmanuel. Her brothers threaten to beat me if I try. My own son, and I'll never know him. My mother won't speak to me. My business is gone. Everything I built. Everything I thought made me a man, it's all gone. And what do you want from me, Kingsley? Pity? Forgiveness? I want you to know that I understand now. What I lost wasn't just a house or a wife. I lost a partner who loved me when I had nothing special to offer. You loved me before I proved I deserved it. And I repaid that love with contempt. Tears streamed down his face now, but Adana felt nothing. I wake up every morning in that tiny room and I remember this place. Our conversations in the kitchen. The way light came through the bedroom windows, the life we could have built. And I know it's gone forever. Because of me. Only because of me. You're right, Adana said quietly. It is gone forever. Is there any chance, any possibility that someday? No. The word fell between them like a door closing. You taught me something valuable, Kingsley. You taught me that trust, once shattered, cannot be rebuilt. That some choices are permanent. That dignity matters more than comfort. I'm grateful for those lessons, even though they cost me years of pain. Adana, I don't hate you, she continued. I don't think about you enough to hate you. You're simply a man I used to know, who made catastrophic choices and now lives with them. The same way Chioma lives with hers. The same way we all live with ours. Behind her she heard Jennifer call out, Adana, your speech is in 10 minutes. I have to go, Adana said. I have guests. Friends. People celebrating my success in the home I built for myself. The home you tried to give away to your mistress. The home you never appreciated because you never earned it. She started to turn away. I loved you, Kingsley whispered desperately. I did love you. Adana paused, looked back at him through the bars of the gate that would never open for him again. No, you didn't. You loved what I represented. You loved the idea of having a successful wife, a beautiful home, the appearance of achievement. But me? Adana? The woman who designed this house, who waited for you, who tried to save our marriage. You never saw her at all. She walked back toward her house, toward the light and music and life, leaving him standing in the darkness outside. Inside, her guests applauded as she raised a glass. Thank you all for being here tonight, she said, her voice clear and strong. This house was built with my father's blessing and my own vision. For a while I forgot that. I let someone else's presence make me forget who I was and what I'd accomplished alone. Tonight is a reminder that we are enough exactly as we are. That the foundations we build for ourselves cannot be taken away by anyone who didn't help lay them. Glasses clinked. Friends embraced her. The party continued into the night. And outside the locked gate, Kingsley stood for a long moment, looking at the mansion that had never truly been his, at the life he'd destroyed with his own hands. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the Lagos night, carrying nothing but the permanent weight of his choices. Some doors once closed by your own hand can never be reopened. Kingsley learned too late that the woman he discarded owned not just the house, but her own destiny. And he would never enter either again. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Comment your thoughts on the betrayal, and tell me where you are watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below.